Hi there, I'm Sarah Carr and I'm here today with Elizabeth French, who is the founder of Adelaide Lewington. Now, Adelaide Lewington is a leading edge creator of designer fashion based in the Yorkshire Dales and specialises in creating limited edition clothing and fashion from a very unique perspective. We're quite privileged today to be able to sit down with Elizabeth and gain an insight into the incredible woman and visionary behind this amazing leading edge brand. So hi Elizabeth.
Hello.
So first of all I want to ask you, when did you first start designing clothes and fashion?
Well, I first started designing clothes when I was probably about 6 years old. I used to do like drawings of dresses and things like that. And I remember when I was younger, I used to go and buy Barbie dolls, and I didn't used to buy the Barbie dolls just because they were for like the doll itself. It was mainly because they had pretty clothes on, so I used to buy them just for the clothes. Yeah. And then I moved from like glitzy, glam kind of pink things, princess stuff, to a kind of more gothic beauty. And then I started doing sort of more like dark drawings with a lot of detail. The detail was just absolutely unbelievable, and they were so complex, my drawings, that the only person that could probably understand them was probably McQueen himself. So yeah.
So Alexander McQueen's been a huge inspiration for you, hasn't he? So tell me a little bit about how you first discovered him and what is it about his work that inspired you most?
Well, I found out about his work when I was about 16, and this lady mentioned that my work was very similar to his, and she said that it kept my drawings that I used to show her reminded her of McQueen. And at the time I didn't know who McQueen was, so I went back home, did some research, found out a bit more about him, and it was so inspirational, his work, how he combined like artwork and fashion and brought them both together. It was just so, yeah.
Brilliant. So what made you want to go from a designing perspective to actually becoming a fashion designer rather than, you started out doing your drawings? What made you go from that to actually thinking, I want to make this? When did you start thinking that? Or was that from the start, do you think, you always had in your mind?
Yeah, definitely.
A finished product, so you always, when you were designing, you were always thinking, one day I'll create this. So, brilliant. So you always had the creation in your mind. What made you want to make a career of that and become a fashion designer, do you think?
Well, I think it was when I used to watch the catwalk shows on TV, and I felt like the fashion was very boring and didn't have much life to it, and it wasn't as creative. And I remember I used to watch them, and I used to kind of want to like run onto the stage and like cut sleeves off and like adjust things and throw like brightly coloured dye on the garments to give them more sort of like power and drama and sort of volume and
more substance.
Yeah,
definitely, that's brilliant. So I understand that you dropped out of a fashion course because you were told, quote, your designs were too arty or not appropriate. So you were either too arty or you were too fashion. So tell me a little bit more about that and what happened.
Well, I first thought about going onto fashion. I remember going to the end of year show, and I felt like the course was a lot of misrepresentation, because when I went to the end of year show, they had a lot of more creative garments on display, and on the walls they had pictures of John Galliano's work and Christian Dior's work, and I thought that that's what I was going for. And when I went on the course itself, it was nothing that I had imagined or expected. It was more to do with pattern making and just doing the more general and appropriate designs, a very house style that you call it. And I found it quite boring and really frustrating, really, because when you're a creative person, you want to do things like Alexander McQueen, and you want to do things like John Galliano and just really use the colours and textures and patterns. rather than just making just a plain grey suit. And I think that was mainly the struggle. And the other thing about the course was that it was just a fashion course, and I thought it was going to be more textiles and art, and it just wasn't what I expected at all, which is quite a shame really, because I think what brought me to it, because the things I enjoyed, I liked using the machines, and then I liked sort of draping the mannequins and things like that, and that's what I looked forward to. And so yeah, it was quite frustrating. The tutors got frustrated with me because they wanted me to adapt to this house style so I could go out and get a job, and I couldn't do that because I was so creative, and obviously they weren't very happy about that, so that's fine.
Yeah, so it was very stifling really when you are as a creative person.
Yeah.
So you began on fashion, and then you moved to the art course, didn't you then?
Yeah.
But you found that slightly difficult as well, so tell me a little bit about how about that.
Well, the problem with the art course was that they wanted me to do more paintings and sculpture, and I kind of went back to sort of fashion based, so I would do like paintings, but I wouldn't just do a painting of like a typical like
anything abstract.
Yeah,
You just
it was just sort of like dresses and things like that.
So there was always, even when you were doing art, there was always a fashion running through, a fashion element running through that, and that must have been quite difficult as well, because obviously they were trying to create. Were they very cookie cutter as well, in that they wanted you to have the art but not integrate the fashion? So again, you were struggling to fit in. So you fell between two worlds really, didn't you? Which is interesting, because I imagine that a lot of the bigger designers would have found the same thing, initially when they were starting out. So that's interesting, the way that education's not really supported you in that sense with that. So tell me how you view art and fashion as a whole. I mean, what role do you believe that art plays in the fashion industry? So, like as you say, a lot of the catwalks that you looked at, the fashion was very mainstream and very, you called it house style, did you? So, in your eyes, you think that it's a lot more creative. And what part do you think that art plays in the fashion industry? How do you think that ties in your? How do you see it? Do you see it as quite a creative venture?
Yes.
So when you're designing garments, they've got a theme in mind. You have so you've got an inspirational art form within that garment. So there's every garment that you make then is something inspired that. Yeah. So you're not thinking of just the end goal where somebody's wearing that. You're thinking of the power that comes through it, and there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. So do you think the fashion industry as it stands at the moment, that there could be a lot more art integrated into that?
Yeah, I think so, because honestly I watched a interview with some of the people that knew Alexander McQueen, and they were talking about his work and how the work that he did at the time worked because it was in that era, and they were saying how it wouldn't work now if McQueen came about now, and I tend to disagree with that, because I don't think McQueen's style, I always believe that another McQueen will come every time, and it's never gonna die out, and I think McQueen should stand as something that because I believe that his message was he wanted to change the fashion world, and he wanted everyone to bring art and fashion together, and he wanted to inspire people, and he wanted to change the fashion world. And I feel that the fashion world has forgotten what he brought to the table, and it's all gone back to house style. And I think a lot of young people should take on what McQueen wanted the world to experience, and I think everyone should be creative in their fashion design. I think everyone should do more sculpture, fashion design, and bring them both together.
Brilliant. So, as regards your designs, tell me the process that's involved in creating your designs? I know you begin with a sculpture garment first, don't you, before you arrive at your pattern. So tell me how that works. What do you do?
Well, what I do first is I sort of think of a story in my head, and I go with a theme, and then I kind of do research and start on that basis, and then I move into creating the sculpture garments. I do like sketches and drawings, and then I make the sculpture garments, and then, because originally when I made my first collection, I just made the sculpture garments, and then I was kind of stuck, and I thought, well, people aren't going to want to wear this. How can I make it in a way that people could wear what I'm sort of presenting? And then I thought of digital printing, which I'd had a go with at college, and I discovered that. And I also remembered it in the Queen's Atlantis collection, and I thought if I did digital printing, that could that would help people to be able to wear the garments. So then I took some photographs of different pieces of the sculpture garment in different areas, and then I put the photographs into Photoshop and mirror them and edit them a bit, and then those print designs get printed onto fabric, and then that becomes...
And then that's made in London and shipped out, so that's a lot. That's an incredible process. So you go from having the initial design to you're not just having a design, creating a pattern, and then having that printed onto clothing like a lot of conventional designers would do. You're actually going one step further, and you're creating a sculpture in effect, and then taking an element of that which is then printed onto clothing for people to wear. So that's an incredible creative process to do, and that's something you're not going to find in a lot of places, I imagine. That's quite a lot of work. So as well as it just being limited edition, all the clothing that you're making, that's all that work has gone into everything you wear. So so you're not just getting a garment at the end of it, you're getting a whole, an element of a sculpture in effect as well. That's an incredible way. Yeah, that's amazing. So also, I'm saying you've got Asperger's syndrome. So do you feel that being on the autistic spectrum helps you to view things in a different way and to create these unique patterns and designs that other people might not think of or even see? Do you think that's helped you in a lot of ways to be able to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
It has helped a lot.
Yeah. Because I know a few people have said that you put a lot of different colours together that might necessarily not be conventional, but then somehow it works. And I know that when you had your first photo shoot for your initial collection, the photographer was a little bit confused with some of the shoes that you'd put to go with some of the leggings, for example. And there was a little bit of, that's, because it was so out there and so different, but somehow when you put these things together, just the way that you do it, it just works. So that's incredible. So of course you've grown up with Asperger's as well, so tell me a little bit about what that was like, growing up with autism.
I think it was frustrating in the sense that making friends was hard, and getting on with your work was hard, especially being in school and then your schoolwork, and then it was exactly the same in college, the college work, but apart from that, I think it did kind of help the kind of creative side, but I think the struggles of it, there's so many things such as noise and then social situations and things like that, and I think it did kind of worry me in the sense that I thought that I could never do this business because of it, because I believed that my social problems would sort of get in the way, but I kind of thought about it and took a step back and kind of managed to build a way around it so that I could use it to my advantage rather than using it as a disadvantage.
See, that's an incredible thing. A lot of people can't do that, so that's inspiring in itself. So despite all the obstacles and despite college and education not supporting you, despite all social issues and everything you've been through as regards sensory overload, you know, having to not only cope with that environment but to work way around it, and also not just to be able to cope but to excel. That's an incredible thing to be able to achieve, so well done. Well done. So lastly, see, with the honeybee collection is at a close at the moment, so that's completed. So do you have any plans for your next collection?
It's already on the way. I'm working on one garment already, which is like a jacket, but this theme is to do with the jungle. So it's like the Amazon jungle, and it's all about saving the rainforest. Such as my other collection was about saving the bees, whereas this is more sort of like focused on the rainforest, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's exciting. So there's going to be a lot of different themes running through. So there's quite an ethical background to your collections, and as you say, the first one was quite inspired by Save the Bees. So are you going to incorporate that, do you think, in quite a bit of the promotion and helping the rainforest? So there's a lot of promotion involved in that. So brilliant. And the clothes, obviously everything's printed in, made in the UK, printed in the UK as well, isn't it? So it's all very British made. So definitely not just the creativity, but it's a very ethical company and a very ethical design that you've got there supporting it. So I think, well, thank you very much for your time. I think we're really excited to see what's going to come next, and thank you so much, and you're an inspiration. Thank you.